Welcome to our webinar. My name is Francis Rivera, and I am a senior application engineer with TechSource Computing Solutions. Today we're going to explore how AI is revolutionizing the electrical engineering landscape. So we'll look at how these technologies can help us enhance our design processes, improve the performance of our control systems, and implement intelligent maintenance strategy. So before we start, we will be showing an entry poll to know what are your backgrounds and what describes your role, so I can know how I can continue with our presentation. So right now, okay. Some of you are students. So some of you work on small projects and mostly on the electrifications. And wow, majority is already using MATLAB and Simulink. And the challenges, of course, modeling accuracy. Okay. A lot of you already have used MATLAB Simulink. Okay. So okay. I work, some of them know the basics and already have doing a custom code like C or C++ and algorithm design. I guess already majority of you already answered our entry poll. So okay, we can now proceed. And yeah, okay, let's proceed with our presentation. So let's start again with this one. So electrifications of everything. So electrifications can be a bit of a buzzword for some people. So what do you really mean by it? So the next four slides outline four areas of applications. So projections indicate that renewable energy will make up almost 50% of the power generation in the future. So of this, wind and solar power will provide two-thirds of renewable energy production, so with hydropower and other sources making up the remainders. Renewable energy sources are eliminating the needs to burn fossil fuel, thus reducing the amount of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases produced by power plants. Hybrids and battery electric vehicles are becoming more and more popular, helping us reduce our carbon footprints and air quality. So aircraft and marine vessels benefits from more electrification too. So replacing mechanical systems with electric systems reduces weight, increases fuel efficiency, operating performance, and reduces greenhouse gas emissions. So while full electric aircraft may be years away, simply replacing one jet fuel driven engine with an electric driven engine can reduce emission on takes off. So when aircraft burn fuel inefficiency. So electric motors consumes 45 to 50% of all electricity produced. So imagine that. So, electric motor technology simplifies mechanical systems and is more reliable than combustion engines. So it also allows for more fine grain controls and can be embedded in small forms of factors. Electric systems and particularly electric motors requires electronic to govern them. So challenge of software skills. Well, the opportunity is of course for the software, faster, cheaper, and programmable. So it paves the way for embodied AI. So let's talk about artificial intelligence. When you think about an AI or any smart system, you might think about a humanoid robot or a self-driving car like Tesla or simply a drone. However, AI has also transformed production machines, power plants, utilities, and renewable energy. So industrial robots and other industrial equipment into smart systems. With this, AI became an integral part of the digital transformation of the 21st century, often referred as Industry 4.0. So AI had been a hot topic for several decades, but how can we utilize such tools? So these are the key industries that we can focus on. We can focus on the automotives, uh, electronics, energy production, industrial machinery, semiconductors, process industries, and railway systems. We can, well, there's also other industries that are can be used for AI, say medical devices. But for now, let's focus on these highlighted industries. Now, let's go to our agenda for today. So I'll begin with a brief introduction current AI megatrend, and I'll be introducing the AI-driven workflow to set the context and align on the objectives of our discussion. Next, we will explore some practical, some practical, for a while, some practical approach in AI development and some use case stories. Following that, I'll share some deployment options available to further improve overall workflow and process. Then some support, of course. Finally, we'll wrap up with the key takeaways and, of course, why MATLAB is important. So let's start with the AI megatrend. So AI is transforming industries by automating tasks, by developing algorithms that enable computers to perform tasks and uncovering insights from data. So that usually requires human intelligence. Of course, some applications are for healthcare, like medical diagnosis, finance, of course, fraud detection, manufacturing and automation, predictive for that one, predictive maintenance, transportation and autonomous vehicle for the self driving cars, and agriculture for some smart irrigation system. So there's actually a subset of AI. So machine learning allows machines to learn from data using statistical methods without explicit programming. And there's actually two learnings under the machine learning. We have here unsupervised learning and supervised learning. So let me give you some analogy on how we can describe unsupervised learning. So let's say for the unsupervised learning, there's actually a group of customers into segments based on their purchasing behavior. So without knowing any predefined labels like loyal or new or at risk. And also for the supervised learning, for the analogy of that one, it predicts the remaining useful, let's say it predicts the remaining useful life of a lithium ion battery based on feature like voltage, current, temperature, and charge cycles. And also we also have here our reinforcement learning. So it uses interaction data to learn by trial and error. So focusing on maximizing rewards. So more on the trial, focus on that with the trial and error. And also we have here the deep learning, a specialized subset of ML or machine learning, using neural network with multiple layers for complex tasks like image recognition or language translation. Okay. So the purpose of this slide is to show the landscape of MATLAB tools that broad terms AI covers. MATLAB has tools for all of this domain and more. And so machine learning is more than just a toolbox. So data for the data science, which is a broad field and a hot topic today due to its versatility and many application across industries. According to a survey by LinkedIn, data science is ranked among the top 10 most promising careers with 35% annual growth rate in job posting. Now, let's proceed with the trends or AI megatrends. We have three here. So let's start with the trend number one. So the first trend is the increasing application of AI to enhance or complement traditional methods using in creating engineered systems. So here is a system level architecture diagram that help us visualize different components of the design, which includes the plant model, the physical system, and we're controlling the and control algorithm, and perception and sensing that feeds data into algorithms. AI can be applied to plant model, and this use case is called reduced order modeling or what we call ROM. We take high fidelity physical models that are computing intensively to run, and we apply RRM techniques to reduce the complexity while preserving the model's essential behavior. So when it comes to perception and sensing, AI can be applied to create virtual sensors, which is estimating signal of interest that a physical sensor cannot directly measure. So, or when the physical sensor is too costly or complicated to implement. So another emerging use case of virtual sensors is to provide a backup for the physical sensor in the case the physical sensor has a what we call a hard failure or become unreliable in operation. So a well-known example of virtual sensor is for estimating battery as state of charge or SOC, which a quantity that is hard to measure. We will actually talk it about later for this one. And the advantage of the AI-driven approach over a traditional method, such as Kalman filter, is it does not require or assume any physical model of the battery. So the third use case is applying reinforcement learning to planning and control. So training an agent through repeated trial and error interaction between the agent and the environment. So in most customer cases, the environment of the agent to environment interactions to train and validate the agent is the key. Okay. So for the trend number two, we're seeing in this space is an increased interest in deploying AI to embedded devices. So a modern data center or compute cluster has huge pools of memory, high throughput compute, and dedicated grid connection, and even backup power generator. So supporting massive training and inference of AI models of billion parameters. So as we move down to desktop and embedded processors, the memory performance and power consumption become more limited. And that imposes constraints on the size and the complexity of AI models that we can run on this resource limited device. So on one hand, we have limited hardware functionality. On the other hand, we still want to maintain good throughput, keep the model small, meanwhile having high accuracy when running inference with AI model. So the question is, how do we reconcile the tension by striking a balance between all the deployment objectives when it comes to embedded device? So this is an area that we will explore in depth in today's session. So here, for the trend number three, of course, increase focus in regularization and certification. We also have certification for the automotives, stating that road vehicles, safety, and artificial intelligence. We also have regularization and certifications for aerospace, and of course for the medical devices, if they're planning to adopt the AI, of course, using machine learning. Okay, excuse me. Now, the second agenda is what is an AI-driven workflow? So an AI-driven workflow consists of four processes. So we have here data preparation, wherein we do data cleansing and preparation, wherein we can do some formatting or uh, splitting of data, human insights, and simulation generated data coming from the simulation itself. Also, we have here AI modeling, wherein we can do some model design and tuning. Of course, we can do some hardware accelerated training and interoperability for Python. We for that one. And the next after that is simulation and test. We can do some integration with complex systems, system simulation, and some VNV or system verification and validation. And after doing this three workflow, of course, at the end, when once the algorithms is ready, we'll need to deploy it in the production environment. So all of these steps are not trivial and require a good amount of iteration. So MATLAB allows us to be much more efficient at this. So we can do it embedded with the devices. We can also do it on the enterprise systems, and we can also embed it with the cloud servers or web. Now, the question is how? How we can do that? For the data preparation, these are the process on how we can do how we can prepare our data. We can start with the cleaning, which is handling missing values, such as removing duplicates, something like that. Of course, encoding, converting one of the examples is converting categorical data into numeric. So for scaling, standardization like the Z-score, for the feature engineering, we can create new features from raw data, extracting useful patterns. For the data splitting, dividing into training, validations, and tests that we can use for our AI, and transformation, which is log transformation or binning or discretizing continuous variable, and also dimensionality reduction. So for and lastly, filtering and smooth for the noise reduction and rolling average. So also with components and machine and plants being connected, more sensors and more data storage capacity, etc. So this highlights major trends across all industries. So the increased amount of data we have access to. So this is driven by several factors, including the fusion of business and engineering data, the rise of industrial IoT or M2M communication, and the simple fact that sensor and data storage are becoming significantly cheaper. So this leads to an explosion of information, creating what we often call big data. So which brings new challenges and of course opportunities. So this massive influx of data isn't just a challenge. So it enables new businesses and engineering models. So this is where data analytics comes into play. So uh, how we can apply AI. So this is how we can do the data-driven approach. So we can do some AI modeling and simulation and test. So previously we pre-process our data. So this is our steps that are going to do. So more on modeling and simulations. So why the question here is, of course, why apply AI techniques? AI is significantly enhanced, of course, the accuracy, the adaptability, and efficiency of defect, let's say, defect detection system. So especially in environment where traditional rule-based or manual methods fall short. So we can do some detect complex defects, reduce human error, and automate at scale and real time. So we have a lot of applications for AI. We have here energy forecasting, wherein we can focus on time series, load or weather forecasting, predictive maintenance, wherein we can do some anomaly detection, condition monitoring, or RUL, grid optimization, wherein we can do some machine learning, reinforcement learning, or optimization algorithm, And of course, digital twin, wherein we can do some physics-based modeling and data-driven and AI-based. So now, let's focus on the digital twin and predictive maintenance. So let's start with the why. Why digital twin? So digital twin optimize current operations, transforms with new business models and opportunities, and it uses simulation to create future what if scenario. So we can do some, yeah, what we mentioned a while ago, anomaly detection. We can do predictive maintenance, fleet management, and operation optimization. So what is digital twin? So a digital twin is an up-to-date presentation of an actual physical asset in operation. So a digital twin can model in system itself, a component of a system, or a system of a system. So how does it work? It builds a model that gets updated with the incoming data from the component or the system. And digital twin represents the current state of the physical asset. So how can we do that? So physics-based, these models are deterministic and provide explainable behavior. So system, let's say electrical, mechanical, can integrate models from other tools such as FEM. And data-driven, this layer uses real-world data from sensors, IoT devices, logs. You can do some calibrate or refine the physics-based model, fill in gaps where the physics model may be too complex or infeasible, and learn hidden patterns on anomalies using statistical or machine learning models. Let's say we can do here the Kalman estimator, regression, or system identification. And also AI-based. AI can further improve the twin, predicting future states, recommending actions, enhancing adaptability and personalization, and detecting fault or anomalies in real time. So we can do some machine learning, deep and reinforcement learning. So now, of course, since we mentioned predictive maintenance, how can these are the three predictive maintenance that we can describe on. For the reactive, of course, reactive maintenance is uh, do maintenance once there's a problem. So the example is replace car battery when it fails. Well, the problem here is unexpected failures can be expensive and potentially dangerous. And for the preventive, we sometimes call it scheduled maintenance. So at a regular rate, do maintenance at a regular rate. So one of the examples here is changing cars oil every 5,000 miles. Problem is unnecessary maintenance can be wasteful, may not eliminate all failures. And lastly, of course, predictive, wherein we can do some forecasting when problem will arise. So one of the example here is certain GM cars model forecast problem with the battery, fuel pump, and starter motor. Well, the problem here is difficult to make accurate forecasts for complex equipment. So what does a PDM algorithm do? So helps make maintenance decision based on large volume of complex. So we will start with the decision, but before decision, of course, we need some data. So the question here is before going from data to decision, the question here is my machine operating normally by using the anomaly detection? Why is my machine behaving abnormally? Of course, we will be doing some condition monitoring and how much longer can I operate longer? How much longer can I operate my machine? So we can use the RUL. So PDM algorithm development workflow, the process begin with acquiring data. So this often most time consuming. This is actually very identical with the workflow that I mentioned to you a while ago. So once you have your data, the next step is to pre-process it. And from there, you identify condition indicators. So this is where you extract meaningful features from the raw data. And this step lead us to the core of the process, which is the training the model. So this is where you apply machine learning algorithms to learn the pattern that will allow you to make prediction. So the dash line shows that this is an iterative process. You often need to look back to identify new features to improve your model or to improve your accuracy. Finally, you deploy and integrate the model into a real world system. So this could be a server, edge, or large software. So this entire process is highly iterative. That's why there's a feedback line here. And as you can see, you may need to look back to previous steps, especially as you identify new indicators to refine your model. So one of the example here is the triplex reciprocating pump. So this is a three-phase pump commonly used in the oil and gas industry for tasks like drilling and service oil well. So given its critical function, conditioning monitoring is essential to detect common faults such as seal leak, inlet blockage, or bearing degradation. So the chart on the right shows a typical output pressure signal from the pump, which the challenge is to analyze the fault present in the system using only pressure and flow sensor data. So this is where AI becomes crucial. It can learn from these complex time series signals to accurately diagnose the pump's health. So now let's proceed with the other use case, which is the virtual sensor modeling. So let's proceed with that one. So virtual sensor modeling. So a virtual sensor can be used to estimate signals of interest that a physical sensor cannot directly measure or when the physical sensor is too or complex to implement. So another emerging use case for virtual sensor is to provide a backup for physical sensor in case the physical sensor is hard to figure or becoming unreliable. So a well-known example of a virtual sensors is for battery SOC or state of charge. So it is quantity that is hard to measure, that which is I mentioned a while ago. So what we can do is to collect the battery data from the lab and use it to train an AI model for the virtual sensors. Okay, so let me show you some user stories of it. The Gotion, they uses Simulink for the battery pack SOC estimation with neural network. For the Mercedes-Benz, they use engine piston pressure estimation with the use of MATLAB and with deep neural network. And for the Coca-Cola beverages dispense pressure estimation using ML or machine learning, and motor temperature estimation with deep learning for the Poclane hydraulic using MATLAB and Simulink. So let me give you some example here. So this is what the end result of for our problem will look like. So we will be building an AI-based virtual sensor to estimate the battery state of charge. So now, have you ever wondered how does your phone know how much battery there is left, or your laptop, or your EV or electrical vehicle, if you happen to have one? So well, there's actually no physical sensor for the SOC. In the in the rest of our webinar, we will be building an AI-based SOC, so estimator taking in voltage, current, and temperature, and measurements and output SOC values. So as you can see here, these are the variables that we can use for us to estimate the charge of the battery. So we are going to use the data that was collected experimentally and that has already been pre-processed. And as part of the data preparation, the moving average value for current and voltage are also calculated. And these additional variables are useful to provide the AI model with the temporal information about the past. And this simple and cheap computing method is called Coulomb counting. But we don't use it in BMS estimation uh, uh, BMS to estimate the SOC. So we can do some predictors and response for this. So AI modeling is a diverse field. So let's look at the three main types of model using for our application. So we have here classic machine learning. So models like decision trees, but they often require significant manual effort to prepare your data. Of course, we have here deep learning, uses power neural network, which is FNN, is a common type where data flows in one direction, and also RNN. And of course, the hybrid approach is an advantage method that combines AI with traditional engineering techniques like Kalman filter. So first, for classical machine learning algorithms like decision trees and random forest, you can train and validate your models using MATLAB's machine learning. Second, you can also do deep learning frameworks for that allows you to build and train your own deep neural network. And third, you have the flexibility to work with other tools. You can easily import models that have been developed in popular open source framework like TensorFlow or PyTorch. So let me give you some demo on how we can do that, for example, for the deep learning part. So in here, this is the example of how we can use a deep learning. So we can launch the Deep Network Designer inside the app of the MATLAB. And once you open the Deep Network Designer, it will give you a lot of options to choose from. There are you can import from TensorFlow, and also you have an option there to select a pre-built network. So in here, the example here is we will be importing a TensorFlow to the deep learning designer, and it will inspect the network architecture, and you can change the parameters of every layers in here. And the good thing here is you can export it inside this Simulink environment. So in here, we can export it, exporting to Simulink. And once you export it, you now have the Simulink model created with predict model for using the TensorFlow, using that are inside the neural network. So in here, we are connecting the the simulation input and the other simulation input coming from the other AI model. So in here, we're calling a variable. We can directly call it inside from it. And for this part, the truth SOC, and we can also set configuration parameters in the settings. We can use a specific stop time, and we can do some fixed steps. And the GPU acceleration, we can no the language we can use is C++. And after that one, you can identify the format and apply it into the predict model. And you can simulate the model itself. So in this one, you can inspect simulation results and you can compare the two variables, which is from the predicted and the true SOC. Okay. So now we can now do the integrate AI models for system level simulation. So what we did here in this part, so integrating of trained AI model into Simulink and system level simulations. So in here, this is where we can see our system level. We can open it in a project. So in this part, this is the plant model, and this is where the BMS ECU or the control. And this is actually a subsystem. And once you open it, this is where we can see other approach. Let's say Kalman Coulomb counting, Kalman filter or estimated Kalman filter or EKF, and FNN. So let's fast forward that one. So in here, FNN, you can see it here. We use a TensorFlow inside the FNN subsystem. And this is what we did a while ago. So now you can do some comparison in three approach wherein we can compare the Coulomb counting. Well, the Coulomb counting is one of the method on doing the SOC, also the EKF, which is also a non-AI model, and comparing to the FNN. So as you can see here, it shows the comparison of the three approaches. Okay, so to increase productivity using apps for design analysis. So what we used a while ago is the Deep Network Designer. We also have an option on doing the deep learning or the machine learning. We also have a classification learner, and for you to check the processes, you can also do some experiment manager. So you can run an AI experiment to train models and compare results. So use MATLAB's apps to design deep learning, explore a wide range of classifications, train an optical characterization recognition, and more. So we have here the access pre-trained model, wherein uh, we have here import it from the other platforms, let's say the TensorFlow, Onyx, PyTorch, and of course, we can actually integrate it with the MATLAB itself. So for the Onyx, you have an option to convert for Onyx model format. For the TensorFlow converter format TensorFlow models, and convert for the PyTorch converter for PyTorch model. And you can have an option on um, file on directly in GitHub MATLAB. Now, let's proceed with the deployment to production environment. So this is where we're going to deploy all the things that we did a while ago. So we have an option on the standalone or web app applications. We can also embed it with the device, and of course, cloud and servers. We also have here for the standalone web app, it lets you build dashboard with algorithms running on backend, and it, of course, deploy dashboard as desktop executable or web app. And also for real-time deployment onto embedded hardware, we can convert MATLAB into C, C++, or CUDA. So utilizing the code generation tools in MATLAB means we can use the same test framework for our MATLAB code as our generated code for equivalent testing. Let's say for SIL or PIL, or software in the loop or processor in the loop. So this is here are the examples of real-time deployment on embedded device. So the example here, deploying to Jetson's AGX Savior, wherein it the one that we created in the model, we can deploy it directly to Jetson itself. So it can operate inside the Jetson platform. In one of the example here, also deployed to ARM Cortex-A microprocessor. And of course, deployed to ZSU 102 board from Xilinx. So for the MATLAB production server, we have here the process begins at the top in the analytic development section. You develop and test your algorithms in MATLAB, then use MATLAB compiler SDK to package your code for deployment. So the package is to deploy to central part of the diagram, wherein the MATLAB productions, and it can also integrate with MATLAB parallel server to handle larger and more computational intensive. So this allows, once deployed, other applications can access your analytics as shown in the right side. So the server exposes your MATLAB function as web service. So this allows you to integrate your analytics into enterprise applications such as Python, Java, and C++, as well as into web and mobile applications. Finally, your MATLAB analytics can connect directly to popular third-party dashboards like Tableau or Power BI. So let's start. The last thing of our agenda is why MATLAB and Simulink. So MATLAB and Simulink easily integrate AI model in an MBD or model-based design. We can also do vertical workflow and specific applications. We can do model compression, verification, and cross-platform code generation. And we can do some interoperability of open source frameworks such as Python. So here, AI plus model-based design, like what we did a while ago, deep vertical, compression vertical encode generation, and interoperability. So let me give you some key takeaways on this one. So we can, for the key takeaways, we can build AI models and deploy it easily. MATLAB provides an easy and extensible framework for any electrification industries, from data access to deployment, and it reduced time from R&D to production with integrated workflow. So I want to emphasize the process here on doing the AI workflow. We're in data preparation, AI modeling, simulation, and deployment. So that is the last part of our session for today. And and I hope you learned something for this session, for the last session of the this series.